Hello everybody, my name's Vicky, and I have a rather strange illness of an unknown nature. I can't stand when people are touching me. Really, it can be a reason of burns and other disgusting reactions. The funny thing is that I was never too affectionate in my childhood. I didn't like hugging, although I didn't have anything like that back then, of course. I was a normal kid who just couldn't stand baby talk and tenderness. And all sorts of kisses from relatives made me freak out. Later, at a more conscious age, I realized I don't like when someone touches me. This only didn't apply to my mom, my cousin, and my school friend, but to all other people. My dad was very upset with me about it, but I couldn't help it. I knew there was no objective reason, but still, every time I was enraged when someone touched me. If someone asked me to figure out what the reason was, I would probably say, for example, my dad always has terribly dry and rough hands that scratch me. My younger sister always squeezed her fingers too hard just to bruise. My grandma smelled of something sour, and the smell remained in the places touched. In fact, only my mom, my cousin, and my friend were tolerable enough to allow them a little more than the others. But they never asked me. They just thought it was a kind of whim or something like that. There were scandals when I was almost forcibly hugged and required to endure. I used to break down and lock myself in my room. It was no better in society. The school, the metro, just the streets at rush hour. There were people everywhere, and willy-nilly I had to face them. And every time it was like a knife to the nerves. Vile, disgusting, unpleasant. I think you understand that in this situation, I didn't even think about a boyfriend or my private life anyway. If a simple handshake caused me total hysteria, what can I say about something more intimate? Eventually, my parents realized that normal people don't act like that, and I was sent to a therapist to look for non-existent injuries. The doctor diagnosed me with a form of autism with no doubts, and everyone calmed down. After all, if a girl is sick, then the parents aren't to blame, right? And everything would be all right. Maybe. Nobody touched me. I communicated with people at a distance, and my little happiness started. At the same time, in addition to my relatives, the others had previously treated my requests with understanding, so I didn't lose any of my friends in school authority. Until one of the worst idiots came to our class. For some reason, he immediately decided that he was in love with me. And just like that, out of nothing to do, he began to molest me. I spoke to him. He thought it was coquetry, my friend said, and he didn't believe them either. He was even saying that they interfered with a great and pure love, and the doctor's note didn't stop him either. This strange man began to assert that all my manifestations are nothing more than whims, and they should be treated by the method of repression. Such a 16-year-old expert, yeah. And then he started harassing me. Well, wouldn't call it anything else. I was caught in the corridors and hugged until my tantrums. He grabbed my hands and dragged them somewhere in the middle of class. He was constantly breathing down the back of my head, and it happened that I started walking around the school, slightly crouching and looking around all the time. And then something clicked in the brain of this fool, and he started kissing. And now imagine, you go through school, don't touch anyone, and then your nightmare flies up to you and tries to suck you with a taste of onions and unclean teeth. In short, yeah, I threw up right on top of him. He tried to make it out as a joke, but it didn't work. Too many people sided with me. Come on, everyone told him he was a dick. And it became much easier for me to live. Because of public pressure and complaints about him, the principal expelled him. Well, or transferred him. I didn't understand. The main thing is that this nightmare was over for me personally, but the consequences remained. And at first, I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Just at some point, I started to notice small, strange marks on my body. Well, it was the same like from an allergy or if you burn yourself with something little. These marks appeared in random places. On my hands, feet, sometimes on the back or on my neck, but never in the intimate areas or below the knee. That is, usually hands, shoulders, and knees had the marks. Such a strange selective rash. and this thing behaved more like a burn. It hurt, itched, ached, and then didn't pass. New skin just grew over it. And it was very frightening, because I could swear by anything in the world that I didn't get burned, especially in such quantities. It was also impossible to deduce a pattern. Marks could appear during the day, in the evening, even at night, at home, at school, in the park, after a meal or during a fasting, in some new places or on a familiar way. In short, it soon became clear that nothing was clear at all, and me and my mom went to a doctor again. The first diagnosis, allergy, was not confirmed. From this point of view, I was completely healthy. Even the usual reaction to dust, animals, or pollen was okay, and it's in 90% of the world's population. Then we began to search in the direction of more complex and terrible things. We suspected cancer, autoimmune diseases, some kind of skin tin like a parasite. Nothing. Zero everywhere. Judging by my tests, I was actually the most alive person alive. In general, all healthy and within normal limits. And the rash didn't go away. Doctors gave me some pills, but I think it was just to write something on the card. And the moment the doctor handed me the pills, I understood everything. The fact is that the doctor was without gloves, and he lightly touched the back of my hand with his fingers. And while we were talking, at the place he touched, I saw, some small cute spots. Was this strange reaction to touches? I'm not allergic to dust, but to people, here it is. Hold and choke while you chew? But no, they didn't find anything on people in the general analysis either, like sweat, saliva, or semen. A standard such analysis. And just checking for tactility hasn't been figured out yet. I decided not to talk, because even to me, it sounded like complete nonsense. Well, it didn't bother me too much. So it itched a little, and when pressed it hurt, but in general, everything was tolerable. I just became more wrapped up in clothes, so I could have minimum touches. Do you remember that fool who tried to kiss me? So I almost even got better when he appeared again, this time in the subway. I had to go to school specifically on this branch. There wasn't anyone, and apparently he somehow figured me out, and he went back to where he started. Only now I didn't have a chance to escape. When he pinned me in the corner of the car and started breathing on me, grabbing my hands, I yelled. And not because I was afraid for my honor or anything like that. Just in the place where his hands touched mine. It was as if I was burned with hot boiling water. It was such a hellish pain. Of course, that jerk jumped away and pretended that we were strangers. And I watched on my wrists, on which simply appeared giant, deep burns. Somewhere blackness had appeared, and I couldn't say a word. I was just crying and mumbling something. The subway stopped. An ambulance was called to me right on the platform, and my loser was sent to the police because they thought he had done something bad to me. In principle, they weren't so wrong, but I knew it wasn't acid or arson. My phobia had reached a new level. Thanks to the ambulance paramedic for being a responsible employee and wearing gloves. Maybe doctors need to go for help when they're burns. I don't know. But the fact is that touching me through the gloves didn't hurt me. Then, at the clinic, I confessed to the doctor what was happening. Even for the experiment, I allowed him to touch me. And there was a hard, though small, burn on my forearm. I was scolded for not telling him before, and then added that, unfortunately, this isn't a medical case. Everyone was shocked. Me, my parents, and our family doctor, who gave me a referral. After an examination by a psychiatrist, it became clear that this atypical reaction is a matter of my own psyche. I mean, naturally, I don't like being touched so much that my brain gives me a very strong alarm signal, and the body responds to danger and anxiety by creating the symptom itself. Anyway, it's like that trick where people are told that they feel pain or fear or joy or excitement. I was the only one who was suggestive, and I suffered from this stuff. And the saddest thing is that it wasn't treated. More precisely, there were pills and intimate conversations with phrases about safety, comfort, and my favorite, let yourself go. That's just the best way to help. Just not touch me, and not tell stories about psychosomatics and problems in my stubborn head, as if no one had ever spoken to me before. I chose the ostrich tactic of hiding in a pile of clothes and walking as far from people as possible. I was wearing gloves on my hands, some layers of jackets and pants on my body, and a cap on my head with lapels, so that no one touched my neck. This is the armor of a social phobe. But sometimes someone touched me, accidentally or not, and I screamed in pain and got new burns. The most interesting thing is that when everyone realized that it was better not to touch me, I wanted very much human touches. I felt very lonely, cold, and sad. I just wanted to embrace my mother or hug a friend, so that everything would be fine. But my body no longer separated the people I loved from everyone else, and hugs are 60% of the burn on the top half of me. And it's not treated. Write in the comments if you've experienced something like this, especially with manifestations of how the body gave out strange reactions. You can support me with likes. This is the maximum physical contact I can have with other people. And guys, appreciate the touch, because without it, it's empty.